And joining me on the line is Scott Grayson from 97.3 ESPN.com. He posts his Grayson's grades at the end of every Eagles game, preseason or regular season. Check them out every week at 97.3 ESPN.com. As we look back on the Eagles' win over the Jets last night, Scott, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well. So it's always nice to see the Eagles win, but there were definitely things that we walked away with. The guy I have to start with is Chase Daniel, because this is a guy that you're giving him all this money to be your backup and be, the guy who knows the offense. And I'm telling you, Scott, as someone who watches a lot of college football, and I watched him at Missouri, and I saw him in some preseason games with the Saints, and I fast forward to now, that wasn't the same guy that I've seen over the last few years last night at all.
No, we've seen him. Several times this year, and honestly, I felt like I was watching Mark Sanchez last night, because he did a lot of things that Sanchez has done here that leads to turnovers, and it happened for Daniel last night. He throws off his back foot. He doesn't step into and deliver his throws. It's not looking and seeing the guys underneath, who then, the first interception tipped it and then came up with the interception. So there's just decisions that are made here that don't give me a lot of confidence in Chase Daniel right now. Fortunately, and it's hard to believe we're saying this, but fortunately there's Sam Bradford who's going to be the guy leading it out. And I've been a big proponent in trying to sit Carson Wentz all year and let him get some experience by watching and learning. But Chase Daniel has disappointed me so much that I think I'm at the point where if something does happen to Bradford, let's let Carson Wentz go in there, because I have really not been happy with the things that Chase Daniel's doing.
Do you think it's just Daniel is not who we thought he was, or do you think it might be also an issue overall with Chase Daniel of, maybe the guy just isn't comfortable?
No, I think it's a lot of the stuff he's doing is decision-based. So therefore, it's him and only him. It's not like you can blame it on the backup offensive line, which in the first outing that he played this season, the backup offensive line was horrendous and didn't do him any favors. After that, he had a decent game against Pittsburgh, and then now he's back to this again where the decisions were poor. And just the things he did there are all on him. It's not like you can blame somebody else for him. It's not like guys were dropping passes that he threw that really should have been caught. Some of them he tried to squeeze them into very tight windows that, you'd be upset if Bradford or any other starting quarterback tried to squeeze passes into those windows. So he's got to make better decisions, and I think and I hope that he will recognize that when he looks back at the film from last night.
Another guy that you gave an F2 from last night was Jacory Shepherd, and that was, I thought he looked really bad last night. His hips did not look fluid. It looked like he was not ready for the ball over the top at all on that 44-yard touchdown pass. He just looked like he did not know what he was doing at all.
Yeah, I completely agree. Didn't even register a tackle. And when you're out there and look, these guys are getting a lot more playing time than they have all the rest of the preseason. And when you can't even register a tackle or a stat, except for just getting beat on a 44-yard fly, that's not a good thing, obviously. And you go into that last game, and these guys know who are in pads. You're in pads for a reason in that last preseason game. It's because they haven't decided on you yet. So you need to go out there and make some plays in order, like Paul Turner did, to try to convince them, look, you need me on this roster. And if I'm not on this roster, I've at least put some good things on film that some other team might say, look who got cut from the Eagles. Let's go grab him. Jacory Shepherd didn't help himself at all last night. He did look sloppy, and everything you said I completely agree with. Was late on covering, letting guys get by him, and had to turn around. When you're running so the quarterback sees your name on the back of your jersey, he knows he's got you.
It actually would have been 2 touchdowns last night, but Christian Hackenberg is so inept at playing the quarterback position that he missed another open opportunity for a touchdown at one point as well. So it could have been 2 touchdowns. So Jacory Shepherd's almost lucky that it couldn't have been worse.
Absolutely. And if I were grading Christian Hackenberg, I don't know there's a letter that goes with that, because it was just awful last night. He became the butt of some jokes up in the press box because he couldn't even hit like the guy with the sticks on the sideline. It was awful.
We're talking with Scott Grayson over at 97.3 ESPN.com. After every Eagles game, he posts his Grayson's grades. Scott, sticking with the defense, another guy that you graded last night, you gave him a B, is C.J. Smith. He did some solid things. He did some tackling. He did some pass defending. Do you think C.J. Smith makes the roster?
Yeah, every time you kind of heard his name called this preseason, it was typically for some decent things. And therefore, he's the kind of guy when you see his name on the bubble. I mean, look, you see Ja'Cory Shepherd and you start thinking cut. You see C.J. Smith and you're thinking, well, how can we construct this roster where maybe we keep him there? Because I thought he did do a lot of nice things. His coverage last night was pretty good. He closed on a screen pass very well at one point. And he's making the tackles. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than a corner or a defensive back who fails to make tackles because there's very few defenders left. If they get by you, you've got to make those plays. And C.J. Smith, I think this preseason has done pretty well, and that's why I gave him a B last night. I thought he continued that.
Looking also on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, the guy who I feel like every time I watch him, he makes a play is Steven Means. If I don't know how you don't put him on this roster because it seems like, I know he's not going to be a starter, but it's always good to have guys with depth that if they have to be called upon, they can do a job.
Yes, the problem for Means, and I put this in the grades that I put online, I don't know that there's a spot for Marcus Smith and Steven Means. Just they play the same position, and it's going to come down to how the numbers fall with making that 53-man roster. One of them may get cut. And when you look at Smith and the things he's been doing, his jump off the ball has been really good. I think Means has done a lot of good things too. I would hate to have to get rid of one of those guys. I just think right now, if you had to pick one, it's probably going to be Marcus Smith over Steven Means. But, yeah, Means has certainly done a good job. And when I was talking about Ja'Cory Shepherd and putting things on tape for other teams, Steven Means has put a lot of good things down on tape. And I wouldn't be surprised if he did get cut by the Eagles to see another team pick him up.
A guy who put a lot of good things on tape last night. You gave him an A on your Grayson's grades is Paul Turner. He had 66 receiving yards, 6 catches on 7 targets, and he ran back a punt for a touchdown. And you spoke to a couple guys after the game like Jordan Matthews and Dorial Green-Beckham who said they want him on the team.
Well, I asked him, I tried to ask him a tough question. I asked Jordan Matthews, would you be surprised if he didn't get cut? Or would you be surprised if he did get cut? And Matthews didn't want to touch that because I think he didn't want to step on the coaching staff's toes. He just said that I'd be surprised if he doesn't end up on an NFL roster somewhere, meaning that if he were cut by the Eagles, then another team didn't go out and grab him. But the problem with Paul Turner is he just doesn't give you a lot on special teams. And I know he returned that punt last night, but that job is taken. I mean, that's Darren Sproles. That's even Kenyon Barner before you would get to Paul Turner. He's not doing much else on special teams, so you're strictly keeping him as a receiver. Now, when he's out there as a receiver, anything in his catch radius, this guy has caught all preseason long, even in camp. That's why he opened the eyes of a Jordan Matthews. Dorial Green-Beckham did admit to me, he said, quote, I would be surprised if he was cut by the Eagles because he's been impressed with what he's done. So, Turner's done everything he can possibly do. If at some point the Eagles do cut him before this weekend, it's not for lack of effort. He certainly has gone out there and done everything he can, and if he isn't with the Eagles, he certainly deserves an opportunity somewhere else.
Another guy who is going to be interesting to see if he's still on the team or not at 4 p.m. tomorrow is Eric Rowe. There's reports coming out that the Eagles are trying to shop him. You gave him a D on his play last night. Do you think Eric Rowe still is going to make this team?
Boy, that's a big question. That's a tough one. And I guess the simple answer to that is I wouldn't be surprised if he got cut. I think that's why they're shopping him. They're trying to get something for him rather than nothing. And look, I would blame this coaching staff, and in particular the last one. I don't think they played him at the right spot. I don't think he's a corner. I think he showed that again last night. He's not covering well. He's late in reacting. What I think Eric Rowe could be in this league is a safety. Whether or not he gets the opportunity here, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But if some team wants to bring him on board as a safety, I think that's where Rowe will have a little bit of opportunity to play better to his strengths. He just looks very uncomfortable. He's slow to react. He seems delayed in making things happen on the outside. And, look, other teams are picking him apart. I mean, they went after him a couple of times. I thought he should have gotten a second pass interference call last night. But the official kept the flag in the pocket. He had one earlier in the game, and I really think he should have had a second one. Rowe is not a corner, in my opinion, and I think this Eagles team has determined that as well. I would not be surprised if he did get cut tomorrow.
Do you think part of the reason why they're not having tried to play him at safety is because he did play corner last year? They were kind of just trying to see, well, you did this last year, so you can do it this year? Or is it because they're so I don't want to say content or satisfied with who they already have as the backup safeties?
Yeah, I think there's just too many pieces in front of him that have proven it at this level that they probably decided there's not going to be time for him to get it. So let's try putting him on the outside where we are a little weak and see if he can step up and be a guy we need. Unfortunately, I don't think Rowe has done that. Throughout training camp, he was frequently getting a little bit of a verbal lashing from the coaching staff at times because he was slow to get things, and it just seemed like that continued into the games. I like Eric Rowe. I like talking to him. He's a good kid. I just don't think he fits here.
Scott Grayson's been joining us. You can check out all of Grayson's grades over at 97.3ESPN.com. He's got a full list of numerous guys who played in the game last night. Scott, appreciate you joining me. And listen, we only got, we're pretty much there. We're pretty much a week away from football. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think all the fans, and especially us in the media, when we walk out of the stadium after that last preseason game, it's almost like wanting to do cartwheels because now we can finally get the games that count. These grades are going to be a heck of a lot more better to do and more with people you recognize because it's with the starters. It's the guys who are supposed to be making the big money. And it's a lot more fun for me, honestly, to do those in the regular season as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Scott, I always appreciate the time. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Thank you. You too, sir.